our biggest struggle is knowing when to grow. We're at 350 million, it's over 3,000 units. And I think we're coming up on that next level up. And it's always realizing there's going to be pain, but we will grow through that pain and we get to do it together, which is the most amazing thing.
Welcome back to the Live Larger podcast. I am super excited that I get to have my beautiful wife, Pili Aloha, here with me today. And this is the first of hopefully a number of times I can get Pili to come in and to share the wisdom that she mesmerized me with many years ago. So welcome.
Thank you so much.
So today I want to talk about partnerships and just the power of partnership. And I look back at just where I stand today, right? And where we stand, and the big change in trajectory started years ago when Pili and I got together. And so we've been married since 2016. However, we met in 2003. We have 3 amazing kids. And what first comes to mind is the question that we get asked all the time is that how did we figure out, how to work together? And I'll lead you with that one there. Question.
Are we going to go back all the way to 2003?
Wherever you want to go.
Let's go back to 2003. So I actually remember very vividly, I was having a monster of a day. I was 23 at the time, managing this huge barge of a restaurant bar. And when I say barge of a restaurant bar, it was a barge. And I was having a great day, or a monster of a day, but a great day, because lo and behold, we were also doing construction. All the bartenders there did construction. I promise we're going someplace with this. So if y'all been watching, Jason started in construction with his family. They used to lift and raise homes. And one of the bartenders brings Jason in. They knew each other from Europe, brings him in. And he also says that Jason can bartend. I was like, sure, he can bartend. So we ended up working together. Lo and behold, Jason could bartend. And let's cut back to a few years. We bartended together for a couple of years. I ended up leaving to go to California.
I mean, this was a place in my life where I was just doing odd jobs, right? So I was bartending. I was working a number of different things. I was fitting clothes. I was working out of the country. I was writing essay papers. I was doing just whatever was in front of me.
But that's what we were both doing. We were doing everything to make ends meet, to live the life of a 20-something-year-old with no real guidance. And I come back from California and Jason's taking my job. And I take it from him and he takes it from me. But throughout everything, and I think our old boss knew this about us, we always worked well together. We butt heads, but we worked well together. So it wasn't really a decision of us working together. It was sort of like fate, God put us together and made it work, because once we finally saw each other and saw the opportunity, the love, the partnership within each other, I think it was a given that we would always work together.
That's 6-7 years, right? So it wasn't that 2003 became 2003 and a half and couple. And so Pili and I, it took 7 years that she was in one relationship and I was in other relationships, and they just weren't great relationships. And sometimes you have to sit in something that's not fantastic for a number of years for it to actually make sense or become real. And when we did become a couple, we were still in New York City, right? You had come back to New York City, but we're still in New York City.
I actually left. I went to Hawaii, remember?
Yes.
And you decided, I'm going to invite her to California. We ended up going to San Francisco. And a few months later, I moved back to New York City. And we ended up working together back at the bar. And then we decided to start a family. So we moved.
Well, we made a decision, right?
Yeah.
And the decision was that I was going to work one more season at the bar while you stopped working, right? And that was right before we had moved to New Jersey to work in the construction business. And I want to give some peace of mind here with where the conversation is going to go, is that, how did we work to create alignment between our personal life and work?
We just communicated from the very beginning. Like behind a busy restaurant, if we're behind a busy restaurant, if we're working on lifting people's homes, if we are working on millions of dollars of real estate, no matter what, if we miscommunicate as partners, regardless if we're married, regardless if we're in a relationship, but it makes it even more important, right? If we miscommunicate, or if we don't communicate, which happens so often in relationships we hear about, then there is no structure. There is no decision because everything will just explode no matter what.
I think over communicate is the word, right? Most of the struggles we see in relationships is that they assume the thought process of the other one, or they assume the result of their action without actually having the straight conversation with others. Right?
Oh, and we've done that before, right?
We have. Yeah. We had to learn a lesson. We're imperfect to it. But the more it was that, having the conversation now, it takes out the strain, the frustration, or even just the uncomfortable feeling that you haven't said something, but you might disappoint the person. If you do, you get it out of the way and you just have a conversation.
You mean you can't read my mind?
Oh.
And I can't read yours?
I think
no way. We're working on it.
It's been our biggest challenge we faced building together the business we have today.
The biggest challenge is our mindset. I think, and this goes for both of us, I think I'm so cautious. I've gotten better at that, just as you have gotten better at just kind of like bulldogging your way through everything, which is one of the best parts of you in business and in life, is that you do things first and ask questions later. Not with everything, but the differences between the both of us, I will want to like, and I think this is more in our personal life, different from our business life. In our personal life, I want to look at all ends. I want to question everything. I want to think of the worst case scenario, which is you in business. Like, you go through the numbers and you go through the worst case scenarios and you make the decisions based on those numbers. Whereas in life, a lot of times we'll end up
paralyzing ourselves.
Yes, paralyzing ourselves. Thank you. Because we just don't take the action. But I think what makes us work, so this is one of our, the bad things maybe about us separately, but what makes us work is that just works together. Because when you want to bulldog through something, I take a step back and I look at it. But when I want to bulldog through something, you take a step back. You're like, Pili, that doesn't work. These are the reasons why.
It usually comes down to is that what I've learned is that I have to take a pause when I'm asking you a question, because I use so much mental space that I usually have the answer in mind when I'm asking the question, and I'll usually give you 2 or 3 answers before you take it in. And that's the most important thing with a relationship, is just understand how they both operate and
how you communicate.
Right. It's like with sales, with customers, with anything, is that we all think that they're on the same wavelength as us. They all think like us. They all talk like us. They all communicate with us. They all have either more education, less education, but we give the conclusion without actually listening to the result. And what has been most beneficial is that even if I'm set where my mind is, to hear you back, because it might craft a different opinion, but it also might give me better guidance, or it might fortify, hopefully, my conclusion or my thesis to what's actually the problem at hand or the solution that we're seeking.
And I also think what's great about the way we communicate and the way we've learned how to communicate better is that oftentimes you'll see, you can usually read it on my face. All of a sudden, anxiety kicks in. I can't talk anymore. Whereas, and you're like, no, Pili, I just need this one thing. And I've always been about that one thing. And you've been so much better about that as we've grown and as we've gotten stronger as a couple. Whereas I'll come to you with some stuff and it's like, okay, you're like, give me the thing that you need and then let's go get it done.
When we look at what we've done, one of the things that have been really helpful is creating guardrails, right? Yeah. So you look at that, we'll just call that non-negotiables. So what are some of the non-negotiables that we use in marriage and partnerships, in family life? What has been something that we've set up that really, we'll say, changed the game?
Faith, family, fitness, finance. And
those are our big blocks.
Yeah, that's our big block.
Within each of them.
Within each of them, with family is always first, after God. So faith is first, and we've become stronger in our faith. I think as we've
talking family to business, is that we make sure the family piece.
Yes, before business.
It's not the family around the business; it's the business around the family.
Yes. So faith is first. Family always comes before business, and this great example of this is COVID. when COVID happened. We were on cloud nine. Our businesses were growing. The kids were getting to the point where they were a little bit more independent, and we were on like a really huge trajectory. And the thing is, I feel like that trajectory didn't stop because of the decisions we made. We decided as soon as that happened, we were like, I go family, you go business. And it was never an argument. We didn't bring up anything about, well, I should do this and you should do that. No, we just separated. And you took and you ran with the business, and I made sure the kids were set up. I made sure homeschooling was done. I made sure all that stuff was happening. And as things settled down, and that really only took us the span of like 2 weeks to really settle into these new roles that the entire world were dealing with. Like, we both put together schedules. We both put together how we were gonna like get out to other people. This is when we first put together the Jason Pili project. We were going live every day at 12. There was so much that we did. And it was because, again, we communicated and we put family first before business. Because every time I needed something to do with the family, like you would go grocery shopping, you would make sure things were taken care of while everybody was questioning things. We were just like, we're just going to make those decisions. And this is how and why your bulldoggedness, and I love bulldogs, helps, because we make split decisions when we need to. And that is how we thrive, one of the reasons why we thrive. So one of our non-negotiables is us as a couple. Our relationship is first, our children are first, our family and home come first. Then business.
Where we are. And that's the through line there. And that, for many, we think that when you're working in a relationship that both have to do equal setting in one thing, right? Capacity. But in all instance, Pili does more with the family. I do more with the business. And that's just the way this is set up. That doesn't mean that Pili's doing less or I'm doing more, because we can't accomplish this business if Pili's not dealing with the family, not dealing, but doing her thing that makes the family operate in its own capacity, and vice versa. Me with what I do with the business helps sustain, support, and family, our workers, our employees, everybody else who's here part of the team. So you have to not use a partnership to point fingers at one for do or don't, right? There's an equal setting in life that accounts for the business and the family part, where sometimes you see disagreements where one thinks I'm doing more in this aspect, but you're not doing more in the other aspect, that both carry the same amount of weight.
Exactly. And it's like going back to like the roles that we think we should have. Like the man and women should be doing like the equal thing, equal family, equal work, equal all these things. And you have these men and women that are coming at the relationships at 400% because they're trying to do equal everything. I think what makes us stronger is that I'm not equal to you in all the things we do for business. And that was a decision that I actually made and you supported. I would rather do the family thing. I would rather make sure, like, be the class mom. I would rather like use my organizational skills to do all of that stuff. And it's not even I would rather do anything that would support our family as a whole than argue with you about who gets to do the podcast or who gets to do the underwriting or who gets to do all these other things and who gets to be like the business person. I don't want to argue about that. There's no argument. There doesn't need to be. When we found that we actually finally had the freedom where I could take a step back, that made my heart so happy. So anytime I need or I want to be in the business, or if you ask me, hey, Pili, you want to do a podcast with me? I'm like, yeah, oh, look, my schedule's free. Let's do it now. I get to, because that's the life we've created.
Pili comes in a lot when there's that season, right? So we are going and acquiring a project and there's capital raising. That's really Pili's strong point. She'll come in, meet with investors, talk with investors, new and old, and just give them the information, have that conversation. Usually the leading conversation to see general interest in the beginning, right? And that's very big because typically we might have hundreds of conversations when one of these projects come up, right? And so that's a big part with Pili plays, but that's a season, right? We do that for 60 days. right? A couple times a year, but it's not 365 days where we're raising for projects. And so that's where we can use the power of the couple to come in there and really get the benefit of both having the time and space to do both life and partnership and work all together.
Yeah, it's been amazing growing this business and growing our family at the same time. I mean, we skipped the years that we did flipping, and I was a real estate agent, and we had all 3 kids, and they were all under the age of 4 at that time. That was...
we did with the business. It wasn't that we just were very stubborn and just kept going. We kept doing things and finding what we liked and we didn't like. And that's what the big goal when you were first pregnant with Luke was that we had to figure out how to control time. And that, this isn't some godlike we're controlling time. It was that get the time that we had, get it back in our favor instead of having it that you had to go work behind a bar for a certain amount of hours or go, stand on a construction site for a certain amount of hours. But we had to learn the hard way, right? So being a real estate agent helped in its own capacity, but it also showed that we didn't want you, showing house on a Sunday. We're the same part with flipping houses. We didn't want to make the Home Depot runs. We didn't want to have this part where we were constantly under the gun with running all these sites where that led us, okay, how do we invest at a state? And that was the next part that we didn't know, but we kept saying, okay, could this be a key or a discovery or a clue to find out how we could get back to being in charge of our time? And the first rentals, right, there were duplexes, triplexes, they weren't perfect, but it was that next piece of the discovery mode where we said, okay, well, now, what's next? But we're also doing this while in New Jersey, we're doing this in Indiana. So there's a path here, but we had to look for the bigger path. And so we went to the bigger path, right? And then we said, okay, that was investing in apartment buildings, which there was that level, the part of fear and concern. This was a talk with Pili about why we wanted to do this and why we wanted to proceed.
I'm going to jump in here.
Go.
Because I remember when because I think at the time I was pregnant with Lily. We had multiple businesses. You had the brewery, we had the construction company, we had the house flipping, we had the wholesaling, and I was a real estate agent. We had all this going on. I think you also wanted to open up a donut business, and which I said no to. And when you came to me with multifamily, I told you no. I was like, we don't.
This is with rationality.
The donut business, okay.
Oh, but I'll ask.
It would have, actually, I take it, it would have made money, but we just didn't have the time.
Well, that's what you said. It wasn't, and that's usually where it was. Like, how does this fit into what we're doing now? And that's the big question that you ask. And it didn't, right? Because that was going to create more activity in a life that was full of activity.
Yes. And then you said something. You're like, okay, this is how we're going to be able to get our time back with multifamily. Why don't we just go get educated? And we jumped into a mentorship program. We were already in another mentorship program. We jumped into another one and we learned how to do it. And then within, 6-9 months, we got our first property.
Yeah, not 9.
It took 9 months from us having that conversation, we jumping into this mentorship program. We took down our first property in Kentucky.
We also started eliminating stuff, right? So the brewery we sold, the restaurant, the one partner took the reins, and that was really their goal. So it aligned with what we want to do there. We stopped or started to slow down or started to eliminate the flipping, the wholesaling. Even for that, you stopped doing actively on the realtor side. Very few, but very started to slow that down, right? And so we made space for the new part instead of trying to hold on to it all at the same time. And so what happens? You have short-term pain to get long-term success. So you went and brought the 94 unit at $2.3 million, and a tremendous deal for the time. But that was the catalyst that we spent all the time learning the process, brought that first one, and really fortified the business plan by going there, executing, making sure it was right? So we spent the better part of the year just saying, okay, we just need to figure out what we're doing here to make sure. And we had the backstop, we had the support, we had the people around us that helped keep us on track when things were of question, right? But once we figured it out, then we brought the next one and the next one. And now $350 million of real estate, but it started with a couple houses.
Yeah.
And,
a few duplexes.
All duplexes. And that was the piece of just saying, okay, don't want to do this, don't want to do that, but how do we do this? How do we use that to do this? And find the first apartment building. It's the same process we do today, just on a larger scale.
Isn't it amazing? Girl from Hawaii, boy from New Jersey, meets in New York City, and now they have $350 million of real estate.
And he had to be self-aware of what we were doing, right? We had to just go and look at really how we were showing up, what was working in our life, what wasn't working, and then just own it. Like, okay, we don't want this to be our life. And we had to position it to where we wanted a new life. And so we started doing these things. But then when we came upon apartments, we started mastering the habits of a successful apartment investor and then using those habits to intentionally execute on the business plan so we could face the challenges we're going to come, right? So we had to be uncomfortably brave, right? And this is the building part. We're building. And now we've done this and we've been able to go and just accelerate the growth. And so now we're between just accelerated growth into all-inspiring rise to get where we stand today to become limitless. And the limitless part is that we help other people do the same thing because we're not doing anything that's rocket science. We just have made the commitment. We found the ability to use our mind in the way that's empowering and pushing us forward. And then use that to serve what we want to do today and then allow others to do. So you look at that, what have been our roadblocks along the way? What have been some of the struggles we faced and how have we overcome them?
The biggest struggles I think we have faced, again, beyond mindset, because that's just something that we will continually work on. And that's the biggest thing that we continually work on together. You wake up every morning, you meditate, you exercise, and that is actually one of your non-negotiables. Like there are some mornings, and I'm going to be very honest, I wake up, get out of bed, and shoot for the kids because that's the first thought I have in my mind. And I find that every time I do take a step back, and I do give myself some time, that makes my day so much better. So that's something I'm going to be completely honest, I have to work on. So that's one of your non-negotiables. So we struggle with that mindset every so often, but when we remember our own rules with Ikato, with Live 100, it becomes so much better. I think our biggest struggle is knowing when to grow, when to hit that. And I think we've started to realize what it feels like when we hit that ceiling and when we need to find that, not necessarily the next thing, but that next level up. Like you said, we're at 350 million, 3,000 units, over 3,000 units. And we get to the point with our businesses, and this happened a year or two ago. We were in another office. We had a certain amount of employees and we kept on hitting a ceiling, hitting a wall. And we realized that we had to we leveled up our office, we leveled up the people that we surround ourselves with, and we leveled up our employees. So the people that work for us now are highly competent, amazing to work with. And we also have a building that we now own with some of our business partners. So we did that level up about a year or two ago. And I think we're coming up on that next level up. And it's always realizing and being cognizant of when that next level up is coming and what we need to do to structure our lives and structure our business in such a way that I don't think it's not going to be a rocky road. There's going to be stones thrown. There's going to be some pain. There's going to be growth, because with growth, there will always be pain, but we will grow through that pain into that next level up. And we get to do it together, which is the most amazing thing.
Yeah, your past.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, it always tries to creep into your present, right? So for our lives, we spent a lot of it just short-sighted on what was possible, based on just where we were. And that's not a knock on where we were. That's just where we were and where we came from. But that always tried to creep back in. That every time you start to go from that, that next peak, you think that you're capped, right? You think you're at a limit, or you have the doubt, and that's just part of life.
We're not worthy. Why do we get to? And this happens to everyone at every part of business like that. I don't know, whatever happens that makes you think, and it might not even be worthiness. It might just be like, I don't know if I can handle this, or I don't know if I'm ready for that level up, or I'm so busy doing the things that I'm doing right now that I just can't see the way through. But the great thing about the both of us is that we figure it out. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it makes sense.
Yeah, we figure it out.
That's the piece of the puzzle because we're aligned in our goals. And so someone listening now that potentially is, you can say at odds, but probably not, it's just not completely on the same highway in the same direction with their spouse. What advice can we give them if they're struggling to just come together to find how to ultimately work together or just live life in a way that both resonates with each other?
So I think everybody's listening to this and seeing that we have our own way of dealing with things. We sit down, we talk over the past, we've known each other for over 20 years now. And through those 20 years, we've been able to search through each other, and we've known each other as friends, as coworkers, as a couple, as a married couple, as parents, as mother and father, as lovers, as people who love each other deeply, and acknowledging that all those levels as a couple and figuring out, especially if you want to work together or if you even are working together, acknowledging that sometimes you have to talk, and this will be different for everyone, but sometimes you have to talk to your spouse differently, maybe, or maybe you need to figure out what hat you're wearing, or maybe you just have to talk. Whatever it is, you have to figure out how you communicate with your spouse best. For me and Jason, it's face to face. For small things, it's text messages. For business things, it's emails. I cannot tell you how much I've had to train myself to actually read my emails, or at least all of Jason's emails, because I'm really bad at it. But I've trained myself because I know if he has a business thing that needs to get done, he's going to email me first, text me second. By the time I get the text, I'm probably 3 days too late. So realizing how each other communicates. Maybe you communicate with lists. Maybe you communicate with, and I know I'm giving y'all so much, but I have found, and I've tried to give people our exact blueprint. And if you want to, hey, leave that comment down below and say, hey, email me that blueprint, Pili, and I will email you that blueprint. I've tried to give people our blueprint, but it doesn't always work. It gives people a good baseline, but it really doesn't always work. What you have to do is sit down with your spouse, sit down with your partner, sit down with anybody you want to work with, maybe it's even your employees, but sit down with them and figure out that communication piece. How do you best communicate? Or if you're talking to your employee or partner, just make the decision, hey, we're going to communicate via email, and this is how we're going to do this from now on. Like, make those decisions. I think what happens for couples, for partners a lot, is that those parameters are not set and everything just implodes on itself.
So we have a weekly meeting. Now, here's the thing. You're like, oh, I don't have time for a weekly meeting. Set in the calendar and you do. You have to pause what you're doing. Now, we don't use that weekly meeting. Maybe once a month we'll sit down and meet, but it's there just in case it's needed. It's a big important part is that you are two different things, right? You're a partner in work and you're a partner in life. And that's not the same couple in the same conversation at each spot. So we're at work, we're operating in one means, we're at home, we're operating in the same, but we can't overlap everything and make everything confused because then there's no break in what is actually happening in your life. And so you have to have a pause where when you're at home, don't spend all your time working on work. And when you're at work, that's not time to be going and doing all the things that are home, right? And so you have to separate that because ultimately everything gets muddied, and that's where you get confusion in really potentially where some disagreements come because you don't feel things are getting accomplished at a level because you've muddied when things are supposed to actually get accomplished. And you do a lot with work. I mean, you can work for 3 hours and crush it and have your life after that, right? But when you're there at work, have a mode and means for which you operate together. No, intentional. So you can get and move on from work.
Yes. So just to follow up on what you just said, like, you have so much to do. You could literally work 24 hours a day. I have so much family stuff I could do and build on, or I can bake bread and feed our chickens and play with our dogs. I could do that for 24 hours a day. But we have to realize and this is for everyone that's listening, you have to realize that when you're here, when you're working, and this is why we don't have a home office anymore. When we're here and we're working, our mind should be on work. Like, I don't want to think about, and this is where that guilt, that mom guilt, that dad guilt, that parent guilt, whatever we want to call it these days, that's when that comes into play. And that's when you have to put it to the side. You have to understand whether or not if you've made the choice to put your kids in school, if you've made the choice to put your kids in daycare, you have made that choice, be fine with that choice and let them play. They're having fun with their friends. What you need to do is focus in on building your wealth, your business, your empire in the time allotted that you've given yourself to be at your desk, be at work. If you have a home office, be present in that moment. when you shut your computer, when you put that away, when you get in your car, when you drive home, when you get into the house, put work aside. And this is one of the great things that Jason does, because it makes it sound like that Jason just is in the office and he's running numbers all day and he's billing millions of dollars, getting millions of dollars in real estate, which is true. But Jason you coach our kids' teams. You wake up every morning and you do push-ups with the kids. You do fun things with the kids. We make family time a priority. We make church a priority. Twice a week, we go to church on Wednesdays and Sundays. We have made our lives in such a way that we can do this. But the thing is, and some people might do this, and if you have to do this, I get it. But when we're with the kids, phones are put away. Phones are put away and you focus completely. And I mean, if you've ever coached any sort of team, you understand that you can't be in your phone. You have to be present for the kids, or kids are going to get hurt, or they're going to move away. They're going to, whatever it is. But you have to be intentional about your time blocking. For more on time blocking, go to The One Thing by Gary Keller.
I think a great follow-up podcast will be talking about how to raise kids in an entrepreneurial way or other capacities. And any leaving remarks, because Pili is going to get the kids.
I do have to go get the kids. Just try things. I think that's a great thing about our relationship, is that we gave each other enough room to try things. And if they didn't work, then they didn't work and we would just pivot. The power is in that pivot, right? And we've been always good at pivoting and trying other things and different things. And honestly, when it comes down to it, it's the love we have for each other. No matter what struggles we've been through, our love has come through, and our ability to put that love first is everything.
So to recap, number one thing is that you became a couple for a reason. So make sure you set up a line of communication so you're actually talking through what you're doing in life and in business, and not just having everything just pass over. And align with your goals. And if you're not aligned with your goals, find out what the other person's goals are and make sure that you're both reaching for the same goals and not on two separate trajectories. And go through this with the trial and error to give grace to the other person as you go and make new discoveries and ask hard questions, right? Hard questions will help both of us and help both of you to really, truly find what you want and then find what's not working, right? So use these together to just fortify yourself in life, in business, and you will find yourself on the other side of it. And I had a quote, you reach out to Pili. She's got a great foundation laid about how, we've done successfully for that. And thank you for joining the Live 100 podcast. It's been too long. And if you, as the listener, love this podcast, give us a rating and review. We read them all. They help us continue to get the show out there. Make sure you go over to jasonuniversity.com. There's a free assessment. It's answers some questions. I've seen so many people do this, and it's been very beneficial, where you just take this assessment, very easy questions, so you can just understand where you are in your starting line. And both you and your spouse, this could be a very easy way for you to both separately, so you get the uncomfortable out of the way, answer some questions to see where you both fall on the Live 100 principles, and it can help you with alignment to get yourself started, to just break the mold, break the habits, to get the life you truly desire. This is the Live 100 podcast with Pili and I. I'm Jason Rusi. Let's do this.